Okay, everybody, I am so excited about this one. So we are going to cover some things in Publisher here. And I think of all of the technologies that we have used and learned about since we've been here, this is probably one of the ones that is going to be most useful for you. We're going to be spending some time today talking about communication and how our technology can really much better facilitate that. If things like Publisher or a related, any kind of flyer generating software or newsletter generating software, anything like that, or posters, social media, blogging, anything that you can do to get ahead of the questions is going to make your life so much easier. You do have to learn the technology at first, and then you are going to have to learn how to apply it effectively. But again, with all these technologies, you're noticing that once you do it once, you don't even have to worry about it again. Maybe you have to tweak a couple of dates, but really that's it. So this is one that a lot of teachers at all grade levels find incredibly helpful. So when you click onto Microsoft Publisher, which is what we'll do in class, but you will see same setup. We've talked about this throughout Microsoft products. They do try to keep everything, relatively the same. So you're going to run into some of the same tabs here. You've got File, Home, Insert, Page Design, all those sorts of things. Now when you first log in, it'll actually take you to the File tab. And if you go to New, I wanted to show you this part first because this is what most people who use Publisher or publishing software in general tend to do, is just go to the templates. You can create one on your own, but it does take a lot of time to do that. And it takes kind of a designer's eye to figure out what works and what doesn't. So for you guys, what I would do, unless you're really familiar with the software already, which is also possible, but if you're new to this, you're going to want to just do some of the basic templates to start with, and then maybe mess around with it a little bit with some of the other tools that we'll talk about. So if you look into this area, and again we're in File and New, this is lists off brochures, business cards, calendars, greeting cards, newsletters, labels, postcards, all these different kinds of things. And then there's a whole other series of different ones. And remember, again, a lot of Microsoft stuff is geared toward business, so some of these things we're not really going to need, but some of them can be extremely helpful. Now for the most part, probably the most beneficial thing would be newsletters. So for this demo, we'll go ahead and go with that. But again, you can use flyers and any number of things. And what you'll see here is it's got a series of templates, and it's got ones that are set up from office.com, and then it's got others that are installed in your system, and they're a bit simpler, so they're a good way to get started. What you can do for each one of these is go ahead and click on it, and you can see over here on the right hand side it'll preview it for you. So you can take a look at, sort of get an idea of what it looks like before you actually commit to it and start messing around with it. Some of the more common ones that I've seen, this one, this little, I don't even know what graphic that is, but I see it throughout Microsoft, so that one's being used a lot. Let's see, there are clearly all kinds of different ones here. This one tends to get used a lot too. Some of them get a little bit busy. You see, this one has a sort of notebook. This is very teacher education oriented, but when you look at it, there's a lot of stuff in the background. So what you're going to want to do in class is play around with these a little bit and figure out what seems to make sense for you. There's one set here with looks like a summer sort of design concept, but again, all of these things are modifiable. So if you say, oh, I really like this organization here, but I don't really like the sunflower, or I want to do it in winter, or I want to do it with balloons, or whatever, depending on what message you're trying to get across, just know that it provides it does provide it set up just like this, but you can replace that picture with another picture. So don't even really worry about it. Just if there's a certain design that seems to look interesting and you want to go ahead and play with it, go right ahead. Okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and select the borders one here, just because it seems like the right thing to do. Okay. Double click on that, and then you can see it will pop in, and it's got a template order here. So you can see it's got the first page here, and then it's got sort of two other pages on the inside, and then it's got a backside. So when you print these off, very easy to fold them together and make them work. So just know that there are some of them that are multi-page templates and some that are just a single page. So, play around with it a little bit and see what you think makes sense. But newsletters are typically have, a lot more information. If you're looking for single page, you can always do that too. Now, it does do it this way, it shows it this way so that you can see the entire thing, but sometimes that's really not going to work. You need to, at least for me anyway, maybe my eyesight is going, I don't know, but that's very hard for me to read. So if I go into View, I can see why. It's only at 45%. So, and it's set up that way so that, again, we can get an idea of the whole concept. Well, that's just not going to work. So it does give you right here a 100% option, and that sort of jacks it right up there. Now you can see that because of the information that I have in my Microsoft products, that it automatically put my institution name in one of their little text boxes off to the side. You may find that with your institution. You may find that pops up. If you decide that you don't want that or you want to modify it in some way, you can always change that. Remember, this is a guide. It's not the end-all be-all here. So when you look at this particular newsletter, it's got title here, it's got your institution, it's got the volume and the issue and the date and points of interest, it's got a table set up. Now again, we could spend a lot of time talking about how to create all of these things in there, and I will touch on some of them just so that you know where they are and you can start playing around with them. But these days, so much has been created and so much is being shared that it's almost easier to just go for what you think you sort of are looking for and then modify it and tweak it to make it your own. So building from scratch really does take a lot of time, and it's kind of a waste of time in the digital age. So just to give you a little hint there, a lot of people have created whatever you're thinking about creating. I guarantee you somebody else has already done it. It's just a question of, are they sharing it with you and are they allowing you to modify it? That's the only trick. All right, so you can see how this general outline looks, and let's say, well, it looks okay, but I don't really like it that much. I want to change it a little bit. So just to give you an idea, your Home tab here is where if you do want to create anything brand new from scratch as far as tables, shapes, pictures, we've seen all of these icons before, style options, paragraph options, all of these things have been manipulated. You can see that a lot of these areas are grayed out. Well, that's because I haven't clicked on anything yet. So if I click on text somewhere, then all of these things show up and I can go ahead and modify it and tweak it any way I like. It's all the same options: bring forward, bring backward, wrap your text, rotate it. All of those things are available. Okay. Now if I go into Insert, let's say what do I want to do here? Let's say that I don't want my space right here. No, I want to leave that. See how automatically it puts a caption for your image here, which is very nice. So that's, again, another thing that you would have to do on your own, but you don't have to this way. So if I want to go ahead and get rid of my university's information, I can do that. Say I don't want anything there right now. Remember, I can scroll it. I can bring it, make it smaller, and then just go ahead and delete it. And now I've got other options here for different things that I want to include. I can include my Clipart. Let's see, we'll take a look at Clipart and see what they've got. I want to look at school. Okay, that one works. Or maybe I'm doing one on transportation. Okay, and go and click it, and well, obviously it's made it way too big. So I can scroll down on this a bit. Okay. Right. Okay, that works. I can always go ahead and adjust my picture, any way I want. But let's say for me that works. I'm going to talk about school transportation. Okay. And again, you can always, if you want it all on one line, or if you want the different font, you can just go right back to the Home tab, make those adjustments, and you're fine. Gives you shape options here. Again, all of the same options were here before. Things like banners and call-outs and flowcharts can be very helpful. So just remember, we've already worked with shapes quite a bit, but you can take a look at that and get an idea of what you want. We can actually insert calendars in here. So if you click on this, it's really nice if you're trying to communicate. Say you only give out a newsletter once a month to your parents and you want to make sure that they highlight certain dates. You can list those in a text, and we've talked about this. You can list things out in a text, but if they're, number one, in paragraph form, you've lost them. Most of the time they're just not going to read that. You can put it in a bullet form, and that's a little bit better. You can highlight the dates or color code them. That makes it, even a little bit better. But if you can provide it in a table or a graph of some kind, then it carries on new meaning. They can look at that, they can look at their calendar, and then all of a sudden everything makes sense, and they're going to be able to write it down, and the likelihood that they'll remember it is a lot better. So using tools like that, they may seem like just a cute little addition. They really do make a difference, though, in communication. If I want to change my borders, you see how it's got sort of a set of colors and icons that sort of go with what I want here. Let's say I want to go ahead and change that. Then if I decide that I want to go ahead and make a border that's a little bit different, so you see how I've got a line down here, for example? Say, well, that line's boring. I don't want that. I want a really fancy border. I can go ahead and insert a border here. I can expand it. I can certainly make it smaller if I think that line is just too big or something, or it's too wide. And then, that seems maybe a little bit busy, but but it is, you get the idea. You can add borders and accents and different things to compartmentalize your text, because that's the real advantage to this, and we'll talk about this more in class, but the way that we communicate in this age is just so very, very different than the way it's always been done before. And the real advantage to using things like newsletters and flyers, it's quick information, it's compartmentalized, and it's brief for the most part. So that's the real nice thing, is that parents, a lot of schools have found it very effective to communicate with parents this way. Personally, just as a parent myself, when I get that, I think, okay, now I know exactly what I'm looking at. It's like scanning your newspaper headlines. Some topics are going to be relevant to you, and you're going to want to make sure to pay attention to those. But when they're blocked over on, say, the right or the left side, and you know that it has a headline that, oh, well, that's not me, that's somebody else, I can just skip that. I can ignore it and move on to my other areas. And so this kind of software really does help you to do that. So you can see here that it offers things like borders. It's got the table of contents. It's got points of interest. So it breaks those things up, and those are the kind of tools that we're looking for in terms of breaking things up. There are advertisements here, and this may seem silly and nothing really particularly pertinent to education, but putting in a little icon like this, you see this one just says flat out attention grabber. So if all you're looking for is one quick, hey, this is what's going on, or don't forget the date, or urgent, or some sort of indicator that what they're looking at in that particular part of the document is going to be really important, that can be very helpful. Okay, and there are, and again with Microsoft too, just because what you're looking at here are not your only options. If you're looking at more advertisements, or if you find things online that are fair use, then definitely pull those in too. Business information kind of ties into the way that the newsletters are formatted. So if there is a section, let me see if I can find it here, because I'm sure there's one available on here somewhere. Normally there's a section that, looks like it didn't take mine though. Normally when you have something like this set up, you can, you can go ahead and add it here. I'm sorry. Okay, so you can update from your business information set, and when you I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll look at that in class. But it will basically, if there's a section that provides contact information, if you have created that in this business information section here, so you can see in my drop down, it's got address, phone number, all those sorts of things. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm not on my regular computer. That's why. I'm on the laptop I do webcams from, or webcasts from. My other computer has the information. So when you set this up, then every time you create a new newsletter, you don't have to mess with that, which is so nice. Then you never have to worry about it. You don't have to type in every single time all of your addresses and your phone numbers. It just pulls the information directly from your system, and you're done. So that's really, really helpful. You can insert file links here. You can insert word art, all these different headers and footers, page numbers, all those sorts of things can be added. Page design, if you decide to see, this is sort of a bluebird, whatever that means, version, but if I decided I wanted to go ahead and change it, that's hardly a noticeable change on this page. But when you look here, then all of a sudden that looks quite different. So if I change it over to verb, and that's something a little more pink, looks like there's an urban option. That's really cool. I'm a big fan of blue and purple and that sort of thing. So that looks very cool. Now when you're printing it out and handing it to your students at the end of the day, it's not going to make any difference. You're printing in black and white. But if it's a digital newsletter that you're sending out, then that can make a big difference. So a lot of times your color choices can really make a difference. If you look in background here, it's got a gradient background that you can choose. You can do sort of solid colors back here. It was set to no background, but if I want to spice things up a little bit and make it gray, then I can go ahead and do that. So just realize though that try it out, print it out once. Sometimes some of these backgrounds can just be a little bit too much when you actually print it out in black and white. So just something for you to know. Okay, mailings, I should get back to this in a minute. Mailings you're not going to worry about. Review, we'll cover that in a minute actually, I'm sorry. Okay, if I decide at this point, oh, you know what, I really don't like this template, I want to change it, I want to go to something different, all you got to do is click on the Change Template option, and then you can scroll right around here, and you may be noticing something that all of these things are blue and gray. It does keep the color template. So if you can change, now you can go in and change it, again when you want. But if all of a sudden these choices look different to you, it's because they are, or they appear to be anyway, because you changed the color scheme. So just be aware that those are all of your options. Again, you can go here, you can even change it in here and see, how it's different. If it's different, it doesn't look too different there. So anyway, lots of different changes. You can preview them before you apply them. If I decide no, I'm going to stick with what I've got, that's fine. Same page setup options here, margins, orientation. If you're creating a brand new one, this is really, really helpful. And this is, if you guys get a little more advanced, then you can go and look at this. But if you click on guides here, what it does is it provides a ruler guide. So if you're creating your own newsletter, you're not using any kind of template, you're not using any organization, and you're really not great at web design, because I'm not really all that great either. That's why I usually use templates. But if I decide that I do want to include, say, a 3-column newsletter, and I want to put my own things in there, what it'll do is it provides those guidelines for you, so you know that things are going to match up and they're going to look okay when you're all done. So that's a very, very handy tool. Let's see. Other than that, we did look at some of these color choices. Just know, again, when you scroll it down, you can really get a little crazy with this. So lots and lots of choices. All right. For a review, it does give you some spelling and research options, same as we've always seen. If you decide you want to look up a particular word, or you're looking for a synonym, or slightly different way of wording things, one of the really nice things about this one is the translate option. Now, so many of us are going to be teaching Hispanic students, and most of them are going to be fine. They're going to be able to understand most of the English that's spoken in class. If you speak Spanish, that's great. Then you don't really have too many problems at all. But if you don't really speak the child's language, be it Spanish or Russian or Japanese or whatever, you may have a little bit of trouble communicating with that student. But chances are you're communicating with that parent. That's going to be really tough, because more than likely they are going to be more entrenched in the home language than the child is. And so trying to get them to understand, and they're the stakeholders, they really, really need to know what's going on. So in order to better communicate with them, this gives you a translate text option. So if I decide that I want to also make this newsletter in Spanish, I can translate my selected text, and you can see it comes up with another screen here. I'm done with Clipart, so I'll get rid of that. And it gives you a translation from English into whatever language that you're trying to communicate in. So let's say I've got some Greek students here. It pulls up my Microsoft Translator. I go ahead and hit Insert, and boom, now I have school translation in Greek. And you can certainly change that into, and you can see though that it's because the wording is a little bit smaller in Greek. There are fewer letters, fewer characters. It changed the layout of it. So if you want to just hit enter or modify your text in some way, you can. Let's see, give you an idea of what some of the other ones look like here. And we'll do Spanish since a lot of people will be using Spanish. Okay. Now this one may give you some other options here. Let me see here, translation options. Oh, and it includes bilingual dictionary information, so that's nice. Let's see, I wonder if I have hit on the wrong area here. No, that should be right. International sort. That's interesting because I can't seem to find the translation button here. I'll have to take a look at that in class. What about Swedish? Okay, so it looks like their Spanish option is a little bit different, which is very odd. I wonder if there's another thing to that I didn't know about, so I'll have to find out. So we'll go ahead and insert it, and now I've got it in Swedish, and you get the idea. These are all of your language options. Some of them, you will run into things like Chinese. There are lots of different dialects there. So if you're looking at the one from People's Republic or Taiwan, those are very different. So that they get pretty specific here, and they will only continue to get more specific as the technology advances. It's going to be as specific as it possibly can be. So anyway, those are the basics. The view, if you run into, it's at 100% here, but let's say I want to knock it back down to 50 so I can get an idea of what the whole page looks like. I can do that. Of course, I could also just click whole page. That works as well. Let's see, you can arrange all of your windows. All these things we've looked at before, looking at the master page. The review items, the mailing items, you're not really going to have to worry too much about that. If you are sending out a newsletter and a mass mailing, your office is more than likely going to handle that. If you just go ahead and take care of the newsletter aspect and the communication aspect, then you send it on to them and they can go ahead and deal with the mail merge. If you do end up needing to do that, that's a slightly different skill set that we're not going to cover in here. It'll be a little more advanced. And that's just about it for us. So we're going to have some practice time in class to do this as well. All right, see you then.